I learned too late that silence can destroy a family. My name is David Larry. I am 90 years old. And I have been sitting with something for a long time now. Something I never said out loud to the people who needed to hear it most. Not because I didn't love them. I did. I loved them more than I ever knew how to show. That was the problem. That was always the problem. I was born on the 16th of January 1936 in Fairhope, Alabama. It was a small city, the kind where everybody knew your father's name and your grandfather's name before they ever learned yours. My father was Harold Larry, a quiet man, a working man, a man who said very little and expected very much. I grew up watching him move through our house like a shadow, present, but just out of reach. And I thought that was how men were supposed to be. I thought that was strength. I spent 90 years learning it was not. I want to tell you something today, and I am not telling it because I want sympathy or because I think I am owed anything at this stage. I am telling it because I am running out of time. My body knows it. My mornings are slower now. The things I used to do without thinking, getting up from a chair, walking to the kitchen, remembering what day it is, they take effort now. And when time starts going faster than you can keep up with it, something opens up in you. Something honest. Something you probably kept closed for most of your life. I have 2 children. A son named Michael, born in 1963. A daughter named Caroline, born in 1966. I have grandchildren, too many to count in one breath, and 4 great-grandchildren now. The youngest one, I just met her last spring. She looked up at me with these wide, confused eyes, and I thought, she will never really know me. And that is something I did to myself. I need to be clear about that. I married my wife Ruth in 1960. I was 24 years old. She was 22. She had this way of laughing that made a whole room feel warmer. Not loud, not dramatic, just real. Like she meant it every time. I fell in love with that laugh before I ever fell in love with anything else about her. Ruth died a few years ago, pancreatic cancer. It came fast the way that kind always does. And then she was gone. And I was left in our house with all the quiet I had spent 60 years creating. And that quiet, I promise you, it was the loneliest sound I have ever heard. I want to go back to the beginning. Not because the beginning was bad, it wasn't, but because that is where the small things start. The small decisions, the ones that seemed completely reasonable at the time. When Michael was born, I was 27 years old. I was working at a hardware supply company in Fairhope. I had started there as a clerk and was working my way up slowly, the way things worked back then. You showed up. You kept your head down. You did what was asked of you, and then a little more, and eventually somebody noticed. I believed in that completely. I had watched my father live by it, and I took it as gospel. Ruth stayed home with Michael in those early years. That was just how things were in 1963. Nobody questioned it. She was good at it too, better than good. She had a patience with him that I did not have. She could sit on the floor with him for an hour, building something with blocks, and she was genuinely happy doing it. I would come home from work, and she would hand him to me, and I would hold him for a while, and then I would put him down because there were things to do, bills to sort, the lawn, the car that needed looking at. There was always something that needed looking at. When Caroline was born 3 years later, the house got louder and fuller, and somehow I got quieter inside it. I don't know how to explain that exactly. It wasn't that I didn't want to be there. I was there. I was physically present in that house every evening. I ate dinner with my family. I sat in the living room while the children played. But I was somewhere else in my head most of the time. Thinking about work. Thinking about the next thing. Thinking about what needed doing. I told myself this was responsibility. I told myself providing for them was the same as being there for them. I was wrong. But I didn't know that yet. My father, Harold, died in 1983. I was 47 years old. He had a stroke, and it took him quickly, and I flew home to Fairhope and stood in the hospital corridor and realized I did not know what to say to my own mother. I stood there with Margaret, my mother, who had been married to this man for over 40 years, and I had nothing to offer her. No words, no comfort. I patted her hand. I said, "He was a good man," and she nodded and looked away. She died herself when I was 60. I flew home again, stood in that same house, and again, I found I had very little to say. I had not talked to her enough when she was alive to know what to say when she was dying. That gap, that distance, it did not start at the end. It started all the way back when I was a boy watching my father be silent, deciding that silence was dignity. What I was teaching my own children without realizing it was how to keep their distance. Michael grew up careful around me. I see that now, looking back. He was a good boy, studious, quiet in the way I was quiet. He played baseball for a few seasons, and I went to most of the games, but I sat with my arms crossed and watched without saying much. And when he struck out, I didn't say anything, and when he got a hit, I nodded. I thought I was being measured. I thought I was teaching him not to get too high or too low. What I was teaching him was that I was hard to reach. He stopped telling me things somewhere around the age of 14. I noticed it, but I didn't ask about it. You don't ask about things when asking feels awkward, and asking had always felt awkward to me. My father never asked me anything. I didn't know how to begin. Caroline was different. She pushed. She would come to me with things, questions, problems, feelings, and I would answer them practically, logically, because that was how I operated. She would tell me something that was hurting her, and I would tell her what to do about it. I thought I was helping. I think now that what she needed was for me to say, "I hear you. That sounds hard. I am sorry you are going through that." But those words did not come naturally to me. They felt soft in a way I had been taught softness was a weakness. She eventually stopped coming to me with those things. She went to Ruth. Ruth was the one who knew everything, the real things, the things that mattered. I was the provider, the fixer, the one who kept the structure standing, and the structure stood. I will say that. By every external measure, we were a family doing fine. The children went to school, graduated, went to college. Michael became an engineer. Caroline became a teacher. They married, had children of their own. We gathered at Christmas. We called on birthdays. But there is a difference between a family that functions and a family that is truly close. I did not understand that difference until very late. By the time I understood it, the patterns were already decades old, and patterns that old don't break easily. Sometimes they don't break at all. Ruth used to say to me, not angrily, just quietly, the way she said most things, "David, you don't have to have all the answers. Sometimes you can just be there." I would nod and say I understood, and then the next thing would happen, and I would go right back to solving and fixing and being distant in the way I always was. I was 58 years old the first time I told my son I was proud of him. He had just received a promotion at work, and he called me to share the news. And something moved in me. Something shifted, and I said out loud, "I am proud of you, Michael." There was a pause on the phone, and he said, "Thanks, Dad." But his voice was different for a second, thinner. And I realized that maybe he had been waiting a long time to hear that, and that the moment had been somewhat too late to land the way it should have. I don't blame myself for the man I was then. I was who I had been shaped to be. But I do grieve it. There is a difference. The retirement years were strange. I retired at 65. I came home, and suddenly I was in the house all day, and Ruth and I had to figure out how to be around each other in the daytime, which we had not done since the first year of our marriage. Those first months were bumpy. We had grown around each other like two trees planted close together. We knew how to exist in the same space, but we hadn't quite learned how to face each other directly. We got better at it. Slowly. Those last years before Ruth got sick were actually some of our better years together. We learned to sit together and just be. We started watching the same shows in the evening. She taught me how to garden a little, though I was terrible at it. I started talking more. Not well, not naturally, but more. And then she got sick. 2019, pancreatic cancer. The doctors were honest from the beginning. There would not be much time, and we used that time. We talked more in those last months than we had in years. I held her hand. I told her things I had never found the words for before. She told me she knew. She always knew, she said. She just wished I had found those words sooner so we could have had more years of it. I sat with that after she was gone. I sat with it for a long time. The house without Ruth is very quiet. Not peaceful quiet, just empty. I walk through the rooms and I see her in every corner of them. The garden through the window, the chair she sat in, the particular way she arranged the kitchen. Grief is strange. It doesn't go away. It just changes shape. What I think about more than I expected is the years before the last months. The decades of keeping myself contained. The conversations I didn't start. The times Michael or Caroline reached toward me and I was too busy or too uncomfortable to reach back. The birthday calls where I asked about practical things, work, the house, the kids, and never asked how they were really doing, what they were actually feeling, whether they were happy in their lives. I assumed they were fine. I assumed they knew I loved them. I assumed there would be more time to be closer, some later version of us where everything was said and understood. I kept deferring the real conversations to some future moment that was always just ahead. That future moment never came the way I imagined it. Michael is in his early 60s now. He is a good man. He calls me. He visits. But there is still a distance between us that I don't know how to cross at this point. We are too old in our patterns. We talk about his work, my health, the grandchildren. We don't go very deep. And I see in him sometimes, in the way he talks to his own kids, in the way he holds back. I see myself in him, and it pains me. Not because he is a bad father. He is not. But because I gave him a template for how men are supposed to be, and it was not a generous one. Caroline is warmer. She always pushed past my walls more than her brother did. She still does. She will sit with me and ask how I am actually doing, and I am better at answering now, at 90, than I was at 60. You would think it gets easier to be honest with age. Maybe it does a little, or maybe you just stop being afraid of what happens if you are. I have 4 great-grandchildren. The oldest is 7. When I hold the younger ones, I think about all the times I held Michael and Caroline and put them down because something else needed doing. I think about the particular weight of a small child in your arms, how temporary that is, how fast they grow into people who don't fit there anymore. I could have held on longer. I could have stayed in those moments longer. But I was always thinking about the next thing. There is no next thing now. I am 90 years old. The next thing is not something I plan around anymore. I have outlived my parents, my wife, some friends, one brother. You start to understand at some point that outliving people is not the same as living well. And I think I lived responsibly. I think I kept my promises in the way I understood promises. But there is a version of living that goes deeper than responsibility. A version where you are actually present in your own life and in the lives of the people who need you. I arrived at that version too late, and with not enough time left to make it matter the way it should. What I want to say, and I am saying it here because I do not have many other places to say it, is that silence is not neutral. I thought for a long time that staying quiet was staying safe, that not saying the hard things meant not risking anything. But silence has a cost. It accumulates. It sits in a room between people for years and years, until it becomes the atmosphere they breathe. And then one day you try to say something real, and you find that neither of you knows how anymore. I lost years of closeness with my children, not because I didn't love them, but because I never said the right things at the right time. I lost a depth with my wife that we only found near the very end. I let my relationship with my own parents stay shallow because I modeled my silence on my father's silence, and nobody ever questioned whether that was right. Silence can look like strength. It can look like composure, like steadiness, like the kind of man who doesn't need much. But inside a family, silence leaves people to guess. And people who are guessing whether they are loved, whether they matter, whether they are seen, they start to move away. Not always dramatically, usually just slowly, a little further each year. By the time you notice the distance, it is very hard to cross. If I had those years back, and I know I don't. I know that more clearly than I know almost anything. But if I had them, I would talk more, not perform more, not explain myself more, not justify myself. Just talk. Ask more questions. Sit with the answers. Let myself be moved by what the people I loved were telling me, instead of immediately thinking about what to do with it. I would tell my son I was proud of him before he was 58 years old. I would tell my daughter that her feelings made sense, even when I didn't know what to do with them. I would tell Ruth, earlier and more often, that the life we built together was the best thing I ever did. That she was the best thing that ever happened to me. Not just at the end, not just when time was running out, but on a regular Tuesday, over coffee, when nothing special was happening, which is exactly when it most needed to be said. I would sit on the floor with my children longer. I would go to more games and uncross my arms and let myself feel something instead of managing it. I would ask my father what it was like to be him, what he was afraid of, what he was proud of, before it was too late to ask. There are things I cannot fix. I know that. Michael and I will not suddenly have 50 years of easy closeness. We have what we have, and we are building on it slowly, which is something, which is better than nothing. Caroline and I are close in the way we are close. Ruth is gone, and I cannot go back and give her the earlier version of what I found at the end. That is the weight I carry, not self-hatred, not dramatic guilt, just the plain heavy knowledge of what I did not do and cannot now undo. But I am still here, and that matters, I think. Not as a reason to feel lucky or grateful in some simple way, but as a reminder that whatever time is left is the only time available. I am trying to use it differently. I call more than I used to. I say the things I would have swallowed before. When Caroline asks how I am doing, I actually tell her. When the grandchildren visit, I try to be in the room with them, really in it, not somewhere else in my head. It is late. I know it is late. But late is still something. Now I want to speak directly to you, whoever you are, however old you are. Because if you are younger than me, and most of you are, then you have something I do not have, which is time. Actual time. Not a little of it. Years of it. Decades of it, maybe. And I want you to understand what that is. I want you to feel the weight of it, not as pressure, but as possibility. You are going to become someone. You are already becoming someone. And the person you become is made up of the choices you make when nobody is watching, when nothing dramatic is happening, when it is just an ordinary day, and you have to decide what to be present for. Do not be so quiet that the people you love start guessing. Tell them the true things while you can still say them easily, while saying them is just conversation and not some enormous occasion. The more you wait to say something important, the harder it becomes to say it. Not because you love less, but because the space grows, and eventually, the space feels too big to cross comfortably. Do not make the people who need you earn your warmth. I know how it feels to think that showing up and providing and being steady is the same as love. It is not the same. It is part of love. But love also needs words. It needs eye contact. It needs sitting still with someone and letting their life actually land on you. Your children, if you have them or will have them, will build their sense of themselves partly on how you look at them. That is a terrifying thing to know. But it is true. They are watching you to understand who they are and what they deserve and how close it is safe to let people get. Give them something better to learn from than I gave my children. Learn how to sit with discomfort. I spent 60 years solving problems because sitting with feelings was uncomfortable. Feelings that have no solution felt like failure to me. But the people in your life do not always need you to fix anything. They need you to stay in the room with them when things are hard. They need to know you can hold it, that you are not going to break or run or get impatient. Just staying, just being willing to be there. That is more valuable than most people realize until it is too late. Choose people over productivity. I chose productivity for most of my life, and the productivity is done now. The work I did is not something I think about much. The people are what I think about. The moments I was there and the moments I was somewhere else in my head, those are the things that have stayed with me. You will not lie in bed at 90 and think about the meetings you attended. You will think about the people. Take care of yourself in a real way. Not just your body, not just your career. I mean your interior life. The part of you that knows what you value and why. The part of you that can be honest about what is missing. So many people I knew went through life on the surface because going deeper felt risky. I was one of them. But you cannot be truly close to another person if you are not willing to know yourself. That is not something you can borrow or skip. It takes time and attention and willingness to sit with what you find. Build the discipline to show up for your life, not just for your obligations, though those matter, but for the things that build you from the inside. The reading, the reflecting, the hard conversations you keep putting off, the relationship you keep meaning to put more into. Discipline is not about being hard on yourself. It is about choosing, repeatedly, the thing that matters over the thing that is easier. Love yourself enough to know what you actually want, not what you were told to want, not what looks good from the outside, what you actually want. I never asked myself that question seriously until I was quite old, and by then the question had a different weight to it. Ask it now, ask it honestly, then build toward it. And do not wait until something is about to end to say what needs to be said. Do not wait for a diagnosis or a funeral or a milestone birthday. Say it now, in the ordinary moments. That is where it will mean the most. I am 90 years old. I was born in Fairhope, Alabama, on a January morning in 1936, and I have lived through more seasons than I can properly account for. I raised 2 children. I loved a woman for 60 years. I buried my parents and my wife and more friends than I want to count. I have seen enough of this life to know what holds and what doesn't. What holds is people, the actual closeness between people, the feeling of being known by someone and knowing them back. Everything else fades or becomes irrelevant. The achievements, the acquisitions, the reputation. What stays is whether the people you loved felt loved by you while they were alive to feel it. I have some of that. I have more than I used to. I am closer to my children now than I was at their ages. I am more honest. I am more willing to sit still in a conversation and actually be in it. It came late, but it came. I hope you do not wait as long as I did. That is all I have. I am not trying to change your life. I don't believe anyone can do that but you. I am just an old man who finally learned something true and wanted to say it before there was no more time for saying anything. If this stayed with you, hold on to it. Share it if you think someone else needs it. And go call someone you have been meaning to call.
Not later, now.
If this stayed with you, If something I said landed somewhere real inside you, then you already know what to do with it. You don't need me to tell you, but I will ask you for one small thing before you go. If this story meant something to you, if it made you think about someone you love or something you have been putting off, please share it. Send it to a son, a daughter, a friend, a parent. Someone who might need to hear an old man tell the truth. That is the only way a story like mine becomes worth anything. If it travels further than I can carry it myself. And if you are willing, I would love to know where you are watching from. Write your country down in the comments. Just that. It would mean a great deal to me to know how far this voice has traveled from a small city in Alabama. Subscribe to this channel if you want more of these honest conversations. Hit the like button if this felt true to you. Turn on the bell notification so you never miss a new story when it arrives. And leave a comment, even just a word or two. Tell me where you are. Tell me what stayed with you.